The earth shook. In a matter of seconds, the ground turned into a battlefield. Buildings collapsed, sirens pierced the air, and millions of people asked the same question. How did this happen so suddenly? But what if that's not the right question? What if instead of asking how, we should be asking who? Behind the events we've always called natural, earthquakes, tsunamis, landslides, lies a theory that defies logic and makes powerful people very uncomfortable. What if the most destructive quakes in history weren't acts of nature at all? Today, governments are testing bombs deep underwater. Corporations inject millions of liters of fluid into the Earth's crust, and military facilities beam high-frequency signals into the ionosphere. Coincidence? Maybe. But some say a pattern is emerging. Before every major quake, reports appear. Strange lights in the sky, metallic sounds, unusual seismic vibrations, sometimes hours before the tremor even begins. Why isn't anyone talking about this? In this video, we'll explore what science has already confirmed, what conspiracy theorists claim to be true, and what perhaps we were never meant to find out. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell, because this content might not stay online for long. Earthquakes have always been treated as untamable forces of nature. After all, what else could make the ground suddenly split open? Tectonic plates. In recent years, a growing number of quakes have struck in the most unlikely places. Regions with no seismic history now experience tremors weekly. Quiet cities feel the ground shake without any warning. And strangely, these quakes often follow industrial tests, mining activity, or classified military experiments. Science already acknowledges something called induced earthquakes. These are tremors triggered by human actions. Massive dams, hydraulic fracturing, deep drilling, underground explosions. They're real, measured, documented. But what if these cases are just the surface of something bigger? For decades, stories have circulated, leaked documents, anonymous testimonies, suggesting the existence of technologies that can manipulate geological fault lines. Technologies that, if real, would mean earthquakes could be engineered. Invisible weapons, hidden geopolitical strategies disguised as natural disasters. Maybe it sounds unlikely, and that's okay. But before we dismiss it completely, maybe we should take a closer look. In this video, we'll explore both sides of the story. On one side, hard science, with its data, its instruments, its defined limits. On the other, the theories that refuse to die. The ones we've built floating cities, redirected rivers, extracted oil from the ocean floor, turned deserts into megacities. But is it possible to trigger an earthquake? Sounds like science fiction or a conspiracy theory, but it's not. Science has already proven that human activity can, in fact, cause earthquakes. This isn't speculation, it's reality, measured, documented, repeated. Let's start with one of the most controversial cases, China's Zipingpu Dam. In 2008, a magnitude 7.9 earthquake struck the Sichuan region, killing over 80,000 people. One of the most devastating in modern history. And just a few kilometers from the epicenter stood a newly built mega dam holding millions of tons of water. Researchers suggested the immense weight may have lubricated nearby fault lines, pushing a geologically unstable zone past its breaking point. A public infrastructure project, possibly triggering a disaster. And it's not the only case. The Hoover Dam in the United States has caused measurable seismic activity since it was built. The mere presence of a giant reservoir can shift underground pressures, and in the wrong place, that's enough to shake the earth. But dams are just the beginning. Let's talk about something even more controversial, hydraulic fracturing, also known as fracking. It works by injecting pressurized fluid into deep underground rock formations to extract oil and gas. But in the process, it can also trigger fault lines, like poking a sleeping beast from inside. Take Oklahoma, once a quiet, geologically stable area. After fracking operations expanded, the state went from just a few quakes per year to over 800. That's not a theory. That's seismic data. The connection was so obvious, some companies were forced to halt operations. Lawsuits followed. Entire regions were placed under review. And here comes the unsettling question. If we can cause tremors by accident, could someone do it on purpose? Absurd? Let's talk about underground nuclear testing. For decades, world powers detonated nuclear devices underground to avoid detection. But these explosions didn't go unnoticed. They caused real earthquakes. In North Korea, underground nuclear tests were detected by seismic networks around the world. The blast waves were so strong they triggered landslides, deformed mountain ranges, and even cracked the ground, visible from space. So yes, underground explosions can simulate earthquakes, which leads to a chilling thought. If you placed a device strategically under a fault near a population center, could you trigger something massive and make it look natural? Officially, that's impossible. Unofficially, who would know? Declassified documents from the Cold War mention geophysical weapons. The goal? To use the Earth itself as a weapon, triggering earthquakes, storms, even volcanoes. Most of those documents are vague, inconclusive, but they exist, and they were real programs. Mainstream science denies that it's possible to cause large earthquakes intentionally, and there are good reasons for that. To shift tectonic plates at scale would require energy and control that we simply do not possess. But then there are the lights, the mysterious flashes in the sky before earthquakes. They've been reported for centuries. Blue glows, orbs of light, strange pulses, from Japan to Mexico, China to Italy. Science links them to piezoelectric effects, stress in rocks creating electric discharge. A rational explanation. But during the Fukushima earthquake in 2011, multiple videos captured strange lights in the sky minutes before the tremor. They weren't camera flares. They weren't weather. They were something. And this is where HAARP enters the story. HAARP is a real facility. Located in Alaska, it beams high-frequency radio waves into the upper atmosphere to study the ionosphere. Officially, it's a research tool, but conspiracy theorists claim it's much more. A weapon. They say HAARP can disrupt communications, manipulate weather, and even trigger seismic activity. A rival power wants to intervene. Discreetly, suddenly, a massive earthquake hits. Cities collapse. Panic spreads. The world calls it a natural disaster. No fingerprints, no proof. Just devastation. Fiction? Maybe, but this exact scenario is what fuels these persistent theories. And it doesn't stop there. Let's look at deep mining operations. Around the world, companies dig miles beneath the earth to extract rare metals, lithium, gold, uranium. These operations weaken underground structures. In geologically sensitive regions, they can trigger real collapses. And sometimes, tremors follow. Locals report strange vibrations, metallic hums, a low rumble, like a subway train underground in towns with no subways. Accidents? Malfunctions? Or side effects of something else entirely? And that leads us to a question most people are afraid to ask. Are all these earthquakes truly accidental? Or are some of them expected, predicted, maybe even permitted? And if you dare stretch the question, could any of them have been planned? This is where the line between science and speculation begins to blur. On one hand, we have the facts, recorded data, known physics, clear causes. On the other, a strange pattern that keeps repeating, seismic events near strategic zones, coinciding with political unrest, or following classified tests, or linked to energy extraction in disputed areas. Coincidence? Possibly. But how many coincidences before we start calling it something else. Now that we know earthquakes can be triggered even on a small scale, one question becomes impossible to ignore. What else could be happening behind the scenes without us knowing? Because if there's a pattern, it starts becoming more visible when we look closely at the most devastating disasters of the last few decades. Let's rewind to 2004, the Indian Ocean, one of the deadliest tsunamis in human history. Over 230,000 lives lost. Waves over 30 meters high, a magnitude 9.1 earthquake recorded near Sumatra. Tragic, unexpected. But shortly after the event, rumors began to surface about a possible underwater explosion. Some independent researchers claimed to have found unusual radiation patterns in the ocean. Others pointed to strange movements of U.S. naval ships already positioned in the area before the quake hit. Coincidence? Maybe. But many began to wonder, was this really a natural disaster or a controlled experiment gone wrong? With no solid proof, traditional science dismissed a catastrophic event over more concerning. The treaty bans use, but not development. So yes, governments may be quietly researching technologies capable of altering weather, oceans, and the Earth's crust. And they have been for decades. Here comes the most delicate part. Could earthquakes be used as silent weapons in modern warfare? Not to destroy an entire country, but to destabilize, collapse a key dam, paralyze infrastructure, push a fragile region into chaos. Just enough damage to justify foreign intervention. Imagine this. A tremor hits a strategic facility. The dam bursts. Towns flood. Panic spreads. The government loses control. A foreign ally steps in to help. The world sees it as a natural disaster. No fingerprints, no proof, just destruction. Sounds like fiction? Sure, but geopolitics has never been innocent. Some believe earthquakes have already been used to cover covert operations. Places like Iran, Turkey, Syria, Indonesia experience major quakes during moments of international tension. Epicenters strike critical areas, not too weak to ignore, not too strong to draw suspicion. Now ask yourselves, how easy would it be to trigger a collapse in an already vulnerable area and make it look natural if you understand the geology, if you know where to nudge? If the fault is already unstable, you don't create the earthquake, you just push the first domino. That's the theory behind artificial earthquakes, and it doesn't stop there. Private companies are now testing controlled vibration technology, giant mechanical shakers designed to simulate tremors in buildings for safety testing. In Switzerland, researchers created real seismic waves up to magnitude 3 in urban areas to study building resilience. So here's the question. If we can simulate a 3.0 quake, what's stopping us from scaling it to 5 or 6? The answer is simple: power and depth. The deeper and stronger the impact, the greater the result. But has anyone already tried this in remote areas? Are there test sites we're not being told about? Has any of this been weaponized? No one confirms, but no one denies it convincingly either. And where facts are scarce, stories fill the gap. Remote regions like Siberia, Alaska, Western China, and Middle Eastern deserts are often cited as possible test zones. Isolated, difficult to monitor, perfect for untraceable experiments. Now let's address something even more sensitive. There are real videos showing strange lights flashing in the sky, moments before earthquakes, audible low-frequency booms, animals acting erratically, people describing metallic hums or vibrations before tremors strike. These are known in natural earthquakes, sure, but when you combine them with classified testing, military activity, and geopolitical interests, it's easy to understand why suspicion grows. And the idea of invisible weapons isn't science fiction. Today, militaries around the world are exploring directed energy weapons, microwave beams, electromagnetic pulses. weapons with no explosion, no debris, just invisible damage. So maybe the wars of tomorrow won't be fought with missiles, but with earthquakes, calculated, localized, deniable. And maybe that future is already here. Now pause for a second. If you were a global superpower, if you had the tech to induce localized seismic events, and if you stood to gain from chaos in a rival nation, would you use it? Or better, could you resist using it? And that may be the most important question of all. Because if earthquakes can be used as weapons, who has that power today? And what are they doing with it? In the end, maybe the most disturbing question isn't, can we cause earthquakes? But rather, how many have already been caused without anyone noticing? While science keeps searching for answers, while governments deny, while viral videos pile up and witness accounts repeat, one thing becomes clear. The Earth reacts, but not always on its own. It could be an explosion, a fault line giving way, an experiment, or something far bigger than we understand. And what else might be happening right now, far from any satellite, radar, or camera? If that thought unsettled you, just wait until you see what's in the next video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.